Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Yes, hold on tight to that dream of freedom and liberty, along with the restoration of the Constitution, here on the Patrick Riggins Show and the Libertarian Lighthouse Radio Network. We're going to jump right into this fourth segment because we ran a little over on that last one. This week we saw Rand Paul conducting an old-fashioned talking filibuster on the Senate floor. And for those of you living under a rock or just vacationing under one, Mr. Paul was filibustering the confirmation vote of John Brennan, which we went over his confirmation hearing a couple of weeks ago here on this very show. What he wanted from the White House was clarification on whether the government can conduct a drone strike against an American citizen in this country, a question that was originally raised on this very show, as I said, right after Mr. Brennan's confirmation hearing. Senator Paul eventually got his answer, a carefully worded no, but if you read the statement, you'll see it really wasn't a no so much as it was a maybe. Now, here's a statement that's issued by Eric Holder, and it says, does the president have the authority to use a weaponized drone to kill an American not engaged in combat on American soil? The answer to that question is no. Of course, everyone just heard that. You notice the statement says the president doesn't have the authority to use a drone to kill an American, quote, not engaged in combat on American soil, unquote. So the obvious question is, who determines what engaged in combat means? Now, I'm glad people are finally waking up to what my listeners here on this show were warned about on this very show weeks and weeks ago. If you want to listen to that whole segment after the show's over today, go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Patrick Riggins Show. Scroll down the list, the show archives to February 10th, and look for clip 3. It's entitled Obama's Kill List, and you'll get my insight on those Brennan confirmation hearings, along with my warnings about this very thing, drone strikes on American citizens. If you want to go further back, you also find me discussing this type of action throughout all last year. A lone voice in the wilderness back then, but we're used to that on this show, being on the forefront of the fight for our American rights. Not only American rights, but the natural rights of all human beings. In America, outside America, it doesn't matter. But back to that question. What does it mean to be engaged in combat? How is the president going to define that? I mean, after all, we're engaged in a war on terror, the majority of participants of which are not accurately defined. But we're supposed to trust the government when they tell us the people they are killing needed killing. This from a government who has never felt constrained by the Constitution or the rule of law. When it needed to do something, it found a way to do it. Just look at Obamacare. Hey, it's a fine. It's not a fine, it's a tax. The Supreme Court says so. But getting back to Rand Paul, he was interviewed on Fox News about his filibuster, and here was one of his comments.
After 13 hours of filibuster, we're proud to announce that the president is not going to kill unarmed Americans on American soil. My next question would be, why did it take so long? Why is it so hard? And why would a president so jealously guard power that they were afraid to say this? But I am glad, and I think the answer does answer my question.
So we answered one question, but we have raised another. That is, we aren't going to kill unarmed Americans within this country. But what about an armed one? Do we still try to arrest this person and take them to trial, or do we just shoot them and assume the government is correct in killing them? We have that standard outside the country. The government is killing people all around the world with drone strikes, without a trial, without evidence, without a chance to argue innocence. But we are supposed to trust our government is not lying to us about someone's involvement in activities against this country. Now, here's Senator John McCain's reaction to Senator Paul's filibuster.
To somehow allege or infer that the President of the United States is going to kill somebody like Jane Fonda or someone who disagrees with the policies is a stretch of imagination which is, frankly, ridiculous. Ridiculous. Carolina. I would ask my colleague from South Carolina, is there any way that the President of the United States could just randomly attack with a drone or a Hellfire missile someone without that person being designated an enemy combatant? And I don't think as much as I hate to say it, that applies to Jane Fonda.
So John McCain, demonstrating his total lack of grasp of the overall concept, essentially states that if you are designated an enemy combatant, then you can be hit by a drone strike within this country. He has no problem with that. The only problem is, as I've stated on this show many, many times before, the administration won't release the details of the criteria they use to designate someone an enemy combatant. So you could be designated one for reasons you aren't aware of, and before you know it, taken out by a drone strike, or heck, even a special forces strike within this country. No trial, nothing. The problem with this, as you see, is there is not transparency. Now, Senator Lindsey Graham also went to the floor, and this is what he said real quickly.
People are astonished that President Obama is doing many of the things that President Bush did. I'm not astonished. I congratulate him for having the good judgment to understand we're at war. And to my party, I'm a bit disappointed that you no longer apparently think we're at war. Not Senator Paul. He's a man to himself. He has a view that I don't think is a Republican view. I think it's a legitimately held libertarian view.
All right, we're coming up on this show. I want to play that one more time for you.
He has a view that I don't think is a Republican view. I think it's a legitimately held libertarian view.
So it's not a Republican view, these questions. It's a legitimately held libertarian view. Here is the definition of legitimate as we're wrapping up the show here. Being in compliance with the law, lawful. Being in accordance with established or accepted patterns and conditions based on logical reasoning. So Senator Graham acknowledges this view as the correct and logical one, but not a Republican one. What have I told you on this show over and over? Neither party, neither Republicans nor the Democrats care anything about the average American citizen. In fact, they look at us with contempt. Even when they acknowledge another view, a libertarian view is the legitimate one, but it isn't the establishment Republican view, so we aren't going to entertain the idea of it. The establishment view is the illegitimate one, the view that the government knows best and we should just trust it. We shouldn't question it, and we certainly shouldn't question the president or anyone else in government. All right, we're up on the end of the show here, Patrick Riggins Show. We have just packed that show full and still didn't get to everything. If you want more information about us, you can go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/Patrick Riggins Show, and be sure and hit that like button. You can also go to youtube.com/Patrick Riggins Show. That's where all of our archives are. And if you want to email us, it's patrickrigginshow@gmail.com, or you can send something to us, care of the station, WNOX, here on Kingston Pike in Knoxville. Thank you again for listening to the Patrick Riggins Show here on the Libertarian Lighthouse Radio Network. Join me next Sunday afternoon where once again we'll talk about freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. Next Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. This is Patrick Riggins. Have a great week.
Join us again next week for a solid dose of truth on the Patrick Riggins Show every Sunday from 2 to 3 p.m. Be there.